Welcome to the Story Behind the Game. I'm Kimberly Dona.
And I'm Alana Sunderman. We all like to watch sports, the competition, the talent, personalities on the floor, but there's far more to a competition than what you see on the court or field.
Many of our college athletes have a story behind their game. Today we'll introduce you to two University of Findlay athletes who are much more than meets the eye.
Brady Wildermuth is a redshirt sophomore who plays on the University of Findlay basketball team. But last year, his game got sidelined by something most of us think is pretty common. However, this common illness turned into something a little scarier. He is here with us today to share his journey through appendicitis. So, Brady, when did you first start having these symptoms?
Before I had to go to the hospital, I'd say it was about a week. A week before I went to the hospital, I was feeling a lot of pain, and I felt sick a lot when I was playing basketball, but kind of just pushed through it because I didn't want to sit out at all.
So you didn't really take notice to it? You didn't really
No, I just thought
think it was anything?
I just thought it was maybe a stomach flu or something, but obviously it escalated to a lot more than just that.
Okay. So kind of explain to me what you felt and when you were going through this, like medically, like how did you find out?
So basically I got dropped off at Blanchard Valley. It was probably about 5 in the morning, I'm pretty sure. I woke up and I just couldn't even breathe. So went in there, they had me on an operating table in about an hour. So they did emergency surgery to get the poison and everything out of me because my appendix ruptured at that point. Then I was basically in a hospital for about a week and a half, I'm pretty sure, and didn't think too much of it, but they told me I was really sick and, it was something serious.
Right. So I'm assuming the doctor told you that your season was over and you weren't going to be able to play. How did that affect you and what were you feeling after that?
So we actually had a game that day. We were playing Fair State. And I'm like, yeah, I should be good for a shoot around. But he's like, no, you're not going to leave for another week or so. I'm like, oh.
Wow.
I didn't think it was that bad, but it was obviously way worse because I couldn't even move for about 3 or 4 days, and then it took me a while to just walk with the pain that I was having. It was pretty bad.
So how did it feel to have such a supportive team behind you while you were going through all this?
Yeah, so right when I woke up, I saw Coach Ernst and my parents talking. And then I was going in and out of consciousness. I remember another time waking up. It was after they actually already played Ferris State, and then I woke up and they were all there, and I was pretty out of it still, so it was pretty funny just talking to them, and I don't really remember it, but my teammates visited me frequently. My coaches visited me. I couldn't go home for Thanksgiving, so Coach Ernst actually came and visited me before he went back to Minster, where his family is. But yeah, it was really, really special seeing how close of a family that we were.
Oh, that's great. And how did your recovery look for you? What were some of the hardest parts? Just talk to me a little bit about the process of that.
Yeah, so originally I thought I'd be able to come back during maybe January.
Of last year?
Of last year, yeah. So I was still really sick even after the surgery and after they got all the poison out of me. I couldn't really walk or run it was probably 2 weeks after the surgery when I felt comfortable walking by myself. Then I went through some therapy with our athletic trainer. And that lasted about till January, and then we played Trevecca Nazarene, and that was the first time I got to travel with the team again. Not suiting up or anything, but I got sick there too, and I had to have another surgery basically.
Oh my gosh, so it was just a really long process.
Yeah,
then.
that was the last setback, and that was when we figured out I had to redshirt the rest of the year and not even try to go out. So I'd say it was probably about the end of March when I felt comfortable playing basketball again.
Okay. And does this still affect you today when you're playing? How is it?
No, actually, I have no problems at all anymore. Originally, it hurt when I got hit on my right side of my body, but now I think my body's pretty much healed up and I'm pretty much good to go.
Awesome. So to close, how are you feeling about your junior year, and what are you most excited for? Well, sophomore year. But.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm really happy to just even be able to be in the position I am in. When appendicitis happens to some people, back in the day, they probably weren't living anymore. But thankfully, I'm here, and I look at it as a second chance to, give everything that I can give, and I'm pretty excited to, get out there and show everybody what I can do. Pretty much.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Brady, and telling us about your journey. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Coming up, we talk to a young woman whose struggles behind her game started at just 14 years old. That's next on The Story Behind the Game.
UFTV is your university and community TV station.
Welcome back. The activity of sports competition, needless to say, means facing various health challenges at times. But at a very young age, our next guest found out that she would face more than just a sprained ankle or bruised wrist.
Maddie DeVries was diagnosed with a heart condition at just 14 years old. Now, 5 years later, she also happens to be a lacrosse player at the University of Findlay. Maddie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So just walk me through what this disease was.
So I pretty much found out that I had it, and what they told me it was when I found out was that my heart was beating extremely fast. My resting heart rate was about 180 beats per minute. My active was about 260, which is kind of crazy because the average is 60 to 90 beats per minute for resting. So they said that happened, and also I would have either early beats or missed beats altogether. And so my heart was pretty much beating completely out of sync with itself. And that was how they described it to me anyway.
And when did you find out you had this disease?
So I found out that I had AFib when I was a freshman in high school. So I wanted to play volleyball in the fall, but we needed to get athletic clearance before doing that. So I went in to go get checked and get cleared. And when they were listening to my heart and my lungs, they heard something that they didn't really like, and they told me to go to an urgent care. They took an EKG, and then they sent me to a cardiologist, and then the trail kind of kept running. I think I've seen about 4 doctors at this point for it. So.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So finding that out at 14 years old, that must be crazy. How did that affect you as a 14-year-old?
I honestly didn't really think too much about it. I just kind of assumed that it was normal and that there wasn't really anything too wrong. It freaked my mom out though, because at one point, and this was probably the scariest part, they told me that if they didn't find it, there was a chance that I could have had a heart attack at a very young age. Them finding it was kind of a good thing. So I was pretty relieved after all of it, and knowing that the doctors that I had were some of the best ones for it. So I felt safe about it. I didn't really feel like scared or anything too much. So.
And what was the process like to get medically cleared to play any sports after that?
It was a little hard. I had to go through one surgery first, and it was an ablation. So they put catheters in my femoral artery, and then they kind of weaved their way all the way up to my heart, and they cauterized the diseased tissue, and then they shocked my heart back into a normal rhythm. But after that, when they started pulling me out from under anesthesia, I went back into AFib. So they had me on a lot of medicine for a while, one of those being blood thinners. So that was the main, preventing factor in me playing. I ended up practicing for lacrosse while I was on blood thinners. I just kind of stayed out of contact. And then they took me off of blood thinners the day before my first game freshman year in the spring, and I haven't been on them since, but I did take medicine for the rest of high school. So, yeah.
Wow. So how do you manage your condition, like during the season, throughout the season?
I actually have, I have an Apple Watch, but the only reason I really have it is because there's this square on my watch, on the band of it, and I can put my thumb on it for 30 seconds, and it can take EKGs for me. Yeah. And I can email them to my doctor from my watch, who's back home in California. So,
wow.
That's really convenient.
Yeah.
Also, Fiona is keeping a pretty close eye on it. There are some times where if I'm running, I can feel a pain in my chest, which I didn't used to be able to feel it. So at that point, she kind of tells me to stop running, take a deep breath, sit down, do what you need to do, kind of recuperate. But there have been a few times where I've almost passed out, and once where I did pass out from running, which was a little scary.
Yeah,
but
just a little bit. Are there any extra steps that you personally have to take before practice every day or during practice, just to be safe and sound?
Not necessarily. I do have like a medical note to share with all the referees that allows me to wear my watch during games. So I keep like a Nike sweatband over it to protect all that. And there's really nothing else aside from that I have to do personally. I really just kind of take notice of how I'm feeling during practices and during runs and stuff, just to make sure that nothing's out of whack or
Makes
anything
sense.
like that.
Do you ever have a fear of overdoing it?
Yeah, I've had a fear of overdoing it a bit, especially coming out of my first and second surgery. I was a little scared to kind of get back into things because my body was noticeably weaker, and after my stays in the hospital were about a week each. And so like I'd noticed that like my muscles had started to atrophy, not completely, but there was I just noticed a decrease, and like I would get tired more, and so it was definitely a lot harder to try and think about getting back into sports after something like that. But there was just always this desire to be out on the field, something that I couldn't really ignore.
Yeah, makes sense. Then just one final question to wrap it up. How has this changed your life? I mean, that's something crazy happening at such a young age. It must have impacted you quite a bit.
Yeah, it did. I didn't really notice it at the time, but having AFib has really given me a huge appreciation for being able to play, and I feel like every time that I'm able to step out on the field or go for a run is a great day just because of everything that's happened. And knowing that, frankly, that like I might even be alive right now, like having all that crazy stuff happen has just kind of given me a new appreciation for not only sports but just everything in life.
That's crazy. Well, thank you for joining us, and thanks for sharing your story with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
While the story that plays out on the field or court is always exciting, there is much more to what we see. Thank you for joining us on The Story Behind the Game.